What is going on, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show presented by Prize Picks. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to talk through this 13 game MLB slate. I don't see any weather. I don't see any massive issues that it looks like around the entire MLB. So I think we got a clean 13 gamer ahead of us, Greg. Looking forward to this one. And, you know, it's my partner in crime, Edgy Ehrenberg DFS on the Twitters. Greg Ehrenberg had a good night in the NBA last night. You know who didn't? Our producer, Mike Lawrence, did not have a good night in the NBA last night from DFS purposes or from any purposes. Good to have him along, though, for the ride. Greg, how you doing, my dude?
Yeah, better than Mike. I mean, but we've already identified here that Mike isn't a real Sixers fan, so he's secretly happy, right? Because he hates the Sixers. I'm sure, because I'm sure nothing made Mike happier than Joel Embiid didn't win MVP last week. And then, I mean, I'm sure that he was ecstatic when he broke his face early in the playoffs, because once again, noted Sixers hater Mike Lawrence, he's just a Bills and Cowboys fan and whatnot. So yeah, it's bittersweet for Mike because I'm sure some of his friends are upset living in the Philly area, but he doesn't like any of their teams.
Yeah, he's an FBI informant whose literal goal is to bring down the city of Philadelphia bit by bit. But in order to gain their trust, he must be the most lauded, the most loved, the most incredible Philadelphia 76ers, Eagles, Flyers. Yeah, maybe the Flyers fan. I don't know. You can't really be that right now. They're nowhere to be found either. But you're doing a great job, Mike. Keep up God's work over there. Go Buffalo, right? Go Buffalo.
By the way, this is the worst. This would be the funniest, worst concept for a movie ever. Mike is an undercover agent who pretends to be a Philadelphia 76ers fan when he isn't really.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's like, he has like one of those big monologues. Daniel Day-Lewis comes on. He's like, guys, the eagle flapping hats in Miami the one time. Oh my God, the eagle flap. You wouldn't believe what happened. It's just like, oh, and then at the end of the movie, he's like, I take your soul with me. It's just
fly, Eagles, fly, Eagles, fly, Mike.
Die, Eagles, die. A little bit of that to finish it out. I went KGB on it, but whatever. That's just what we do here. We got to give a good rip. Philadelphia Phillies tried to lose a 7-3 lead there in the eighth inning it was, and then found a way to get it done. Would have been extra special to really have them crumble there as well. Oh my goodness. But what would be extra special, Greg and me? Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. We're about to put in that work, Devin. Don't give up. Nothing like quoting a commercial at 8 a.m., whatever. Let's get to it, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Houston Astros, 4.4 implied runs going up against the Washington Nationals, 3.6 for them. Framber Valdez on the mound, and obviously, we're far enough into the season where we kind of have these pre-notions of guys, but Framber Valdez lives up to every pre-notion you have of him. Limits hard contact, keeps the ball on the ground in an extreme way, negative 7.4 degree launch angle for the year. That makes anybody that you're going to stack up against him just a nightmare. Yeah, we have guys like Soto that we could go to, but now it's left on left. Not that I think about it too much for him. I guess Nelson Cruz from the right side, but overall, a pretty benign Washington lineup. How do you feel about Framber Valdez on today's slate? Uh-oh. Greg? Hello. Honestly, that is just a stoic look that we have on Greg's face. I'll tell you how I feel about Framber Valdez. Not phenomenally well. If you look at the tools that we have, he's kind of a guy that isn't going to have the K percentage you're really looking for. We have 26 starting pitchers to be picking and choosing from here on this slate. Hard to believe that Framber Valdez is going to be somebody I get to a whole heck of a lot. Sure, I think it's a spot where he could succeed and maybe has some utility for a site like FanDuel, but on DraftKings, where I just need to have some of these guys come out there, throw some Ks up on the board. He's tough to really roster. Plus, the walk rate has been up in such an extreme way. 10.9% walk rate, only an 18.8% K percentage. Just makes it really tough to land on. Oh, goodness. We've got Greg Ehrenberg's power out. I'm going to be flying solo. We're riding solo. Flying solo, something like that. I apologize. I won't be singing. Let's jump to the other side of this one here. As I'm going over Josiah Gray, 26% K percentage now in the early going in this season, 3.86 expected ERA. I feel pretty confident that those are decent enough marks to at least have some sort of utility as long as he's cheap. And it looks as though he's going to be cheap enough around the industry for me to still try to have a couple of shots on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, really hard at 8,700, where they've really tried to inflate him. I mean, 8,600 on FanDuel isn't exactly super stoked, but it's a tough Houston lineup. Obviously, you get all of these lefties going up against Gray. Not going to be a spot he succeeds very often, but a very, very contrarian tournament option. I think we're going to be mixing, matching a lot of those type guys on these kind of slates. So I'm looking at the Houston Astros as a lineup that you definitely want to be getting to some shares of. I'm looking at Houston here, third on the board for top stack percentage. I definitely think that there's got to be some kind of utility of getting to Josiah Gray there. There's some positive leverage. I mean, it's going to be one of my favorite teams to roster up all the time. I always get to Houston, but especially in this spot going up against Josiah Gray, I think there's got to be some opportunity to get to this Houston lineup in bulk. You know the guys. We've got Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena, even in the back half of this lineup. It was nice when he was leading off, but I still have a lot of interest going that direction. Alex Bregman, of course. It's just a great lineup. Jose Altuve leading off. There's nowhere that I'm not going to be stacking up Houston, especially if there's going to be positive leverage going there. And then on the other side of this one, Washington, I said it before, I don't have a ton of interest in Valdez, but it's really hard to have interest in Washington with the ground ball rate that we have of one Framber Valdez. Negative 7.4 degree launch angle and limiting hard contact, 33% hard hit percentage. Just going to be a tough spot to be landing on for this slate. So I think you can take Nelson Cruz against any lefty, but just know that there's going to be a lot more accentuated upside elsewhere on this slate. We will get to it. Second game on the board, we've got Toronto Blue Jays, 3.4 implied runs going up against the Tampa Bay Rays. Let's see. We've got Kevin Gausman, 31.3% K percentage, pretty outrageously good pitcher. We saw all of that in San Francisco. We've seen him just continue to get better. He is second on the FanDuel slate in terms of top pitcher percentage, 7.9%, but going to definitely be popular considering just a $9,800 tag. I think he's probably going to be your second most popular pitcher behind Max Scherzer on today's slate. I think that makes it tough for me to really land on him in bulk, considering Tampa Bay's lineup has an opportunity to just stack up all the lefties that they have pronounced throughout this entire lineup. There are going to be Ks that exist on the back half of it. You get Zunino catching, Kevin Kiermaier, who's been hitting better, but still a 29.8% K percentage. Taylor Wall is probably going to be from the right side. It's still in that lineup. Randy Arozarena, a lot of Ks, all of those guys 25% plus in Ks for this season so far. And on the bottom half, Wander Franco, Yandy Diaz, Harold Ramirez, Manuel Margot, all sub 13% K percentages. So those are four batters that are almost assuredly going to be in that lineup. Or G-Man Choice is going to be in there too. Left going up against Kevin Gausman. But it feels like kind of a spot where I might want to be taking more shares of the Tampa Bay offense than you would think, maybe getting to like 3-4% of them, which on a 13-game slate is pretty pronounced. So I definitely want to be firing that up, thinking that's going to be the direction that I go a little bit more than just jamming Kevin Gausman, even though Kevin Gausman, phenomenal play. If you want to go that direction, have that, but a little bit of game theory mixed with the opportunity Tampa Bay has to just kind of stack up some of those lefties. On the other side of this one, I don't really think we need to talk too much about Drew Rasmussen starting here for Tampa Bay. Not going to be a guy that I roster any kind of meaningful way. I don't even think he's somebody that's showing up in our top pitchers tool at the moment. Not going to be somebody that I land on here. Let me even see. Is he even there? Yeah, there he is. Drew Rasmussen. He's 8,900 on this slate. He's 0.5% owned on DraftKings at the moment. It's not the most appealing guy to be getting to. Good real life pitcher, 23.2% K percentage, 3.53 expected ERA. But against Toronto, don't think that I'm going to be landing there in any kind of way. What, Eric, ignoring chat, what are we talking about? We're going to bring in somebody. Don't you worry. I got to just keep going through the games. I'm waiting for Mike. I'm waiting for some go ahead. We're getting everything covered here for you guys. What do you mean? I'm talking about it here. Need extra time to boot people? Sure. If you want to be booted, I can boot somebody. Yeah, I don't think we need to be doing an hour-long monologue, but I'm going to talk through as many of these games as I possibly can as we're getting going. I think we got somebody coming in. Oh, here we go.
Where am I?
There he is.
How did I end
What's
up here?
going on, my guy?
What's going? What? I was working on my MLB model, and all of a sudden, I'm here. I heard something. I heard I was needed. What's going on?
Here it is. Dun 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 dun. Terry McBride, T McBee, coming on in here. How you doing, my dude?
Doing good, pal. It was a pretty good night of baseball last night for this guy. So I had to
Nice.
sweat out a second place run, and yeah.
That's
For some reason, whenever I'm doing well, baseball decides to go completely wonky and take 4 hours to finish the last game of the night. Is Dodgers put up 6 in the bottom of the 8th. It was it was a fun one.
Yeah, well, when I was sweating, so I had a chance. I ended up finishing like 11th, I think, in the $44 queue. Freddie Freeman, bases loaded. He hits a double there, 2 RBIs. I think I take it down. I get close because you had Muncy and Will Smith that were coming up after. Maybe things go different in that kind of regard because they both ended up getting on base later in the 9th. And then, so again, it's one of those things where if the 9th inning never happens, I probably end up winning it. And if he hits a home run, if he hits a grand slam there, I definitely win the queue. So I was the only guy with Freeman up top. Sad times, but you know what? You took second, and I'm happy.
Close to running me down.
Oh, okay. Well, then you know what? I'm glad it worked out for you because
but if it had to go to you the other way, I would be just as happy. If I had dropped from 2nd to 5th or whatever, and you took down the queue, I would have been happy about that. Come on.
Yeah. Shout out to Eric though for keeping the train rolling. Michael Roundtree, I keep it going all the time. Eric will be purple by the time he gets to the Orioles. I was gonna say, I tell you one thing. When you're up here talking to yourself, I mean, I was going to need to have Mike put up a little music, have like the Twitch stream vibe start to go. Because I started to feel like, oh God, I have to talk through 12 more baseball games by myself. That would have been a lot. But Terry McBride,
I was here for it. I mean, I was kind of sitting here like, yeah, maybe Mike won't answer me. Maybe this will be fun. And I could just sit here and watch Eric just
my God.
Like that person said, turn purple was probably about right.
Oh, it would have been hairy by the end of this show. It would have gotten weird. I would have been like, all right. So the Philadelphia Phillies and the Los Angeles Dodgers would have been a little bit of that at the very end.
The Simpsons Halloween episode where Bart got the powers, he could make anything he wanted happen. So he had Krusty on 24 hours a day. And at the end of it, Krusty's just all because of one little boy who won't let me stop. That's who I feel. That's how I feel you would have been. It would have
been a true filibuster. It would have been an absolute filibuster to the max, gotten to the end. And I would have been talking about like yachting or, like glacial activity in Alaska. It would have just been really, really weird. But here's where we kind of left off. I was talking about Kevin Gausman and, you have a Tampa Bay team that can just stack up a bunch of lefties against him. You do get G-Man Choi with that 36% K percentage added into that lineup. So that might be some more strikeouts as opposed to having like a Yandy Diaz with the 10.4%, with G-Man Choi playing first there. But I still think I'm going to be underweight considering he's going to be so popular at that 10K number on DK and on FanDuel really popular at 9,800.
Yeah, that makes some sense. I have to load up the ownership so that I can speak exactly to the ownership percentages. So I was most of the way through getting this updated. So as
spoiler alert, he's high.
Yeah, I figured that. So as I talk through some of the stats, there'll be yesterday's numbers on like, if I say a guy has 2 home runs and he hit one yesterday, that's not going to be updated today, guys. So we'll talk through some of this. But I mean, Gausman has been super sharp through this year. So you got to at least have some, I would think. But yeah, if he's really, really highly owned, I'm always willing to undercut some of those super high owned pitchers, even at the top level, especially on a slate like this that, when I was looking at it, I haven't really dug in, but it seems like we've got a lot of good pitching and it seems pretty spread out. So I imagine there's some pockets of ownership that we can take some of those Gausman shares, still get a healthy amount of Gausman here, and then just undercut him a little bit, spread it out to some of those other ones. And then maybe you pick up a nice performance from somebody. And I'm just my new mantra with pitching is just embrace the chaos, because this is a year where all these pitchers are the same. These are, there are very, very few apex predator types, and they haven't even put up those monster 60, 70 point, FanDuel scoring starts. So I'm looking for 30 and 40 point starts. And there's a lot of guys who can do that. So I'm kind of embracing that and spreading out a lot. And you can get with some of these cheap pitchers, even on FanDuel. Like I had lineups last night that were in the top 50. I had 5 or 6 lineups in the top 50 on FanDuel that had the 10-point performance from the Royals pitcher in them. So, I mean, you can really spread out and get to some bats. It's a really weird, interesting year. And I'm kind of willing to do that. So yeah, I'm with you on the undercut to Kevin Gausman, long story short.
Yeah, I played that Kansas City Royals pitcher in my main lineup yesterday on FanDuel. He put up 10. I ended up finishing like second in the 100 and got like 11th in the queue. It's like, just give me all the bats and all the land because it was one of those things where I'm like, maybe a mid-tier guy, and it ended up being Hicks, but like it was only a $300 difference if I could have gotten up to, or sorry, what the Texas Rangers, it's not Jordan Hicks because he's
Heaney.
Obviously not Heaney either.
Not Heaney.
What's his name? I can't remember his name. The guy from yesterday.
You'd think I would know his name. The kid won me.
Like, yeah, I was gonna say that. You know what? That's kind of what happens though in DFS. Let me pull it up. It's Taylor Hearn.
Taylor Hearn. Thank you. I had two lineups with Hearn in them.
I had Jonathan Heasley in my main lineup because I was like, oh, that's the only way I can really make Dodgers and Yankees work together. And the Yankees were just criminally underowned, put up 15 runs. Let me just say,
massive shares of Yanks with Heasley. I was putting together Yanks, Phillies, Yanks, Dodgers, Yanks, White Sox game stacks. Heasley on top and just running them out there. And there were a few cheap pitchers. And Gunn and I talked about that yesterday, where if you got the 30 some odd good, not great performance from Giolito, the 30 some odd good, not great performance from Wheeler, everybody else was going to be right there based on price and ownership and what they could do for those bats. And it just happens to be exactly what we got. I got lucky that I had that one Hearn share in, but
I love it.
That was the approach that I took and it worked out.
Well, anyway, we continue on. Congratulations on your second. Congratulations not to me on another. Just, I have the worst luck in Qs. I can't even talk about it. It's just, I mean, there are no words. Let's keep it on rolling, my friend. On the other side of this one, Drew Rasmussen, he's higher up the board than I thought he would be. He's 0.5% owned. I'm sure if Neil were here, he would be like, well, I definitely want to get to some shares of that then at 7,700. But I find it tough to believe that I want to go crazy with Drew Rasmussen against Toronto. Maybe the ballpark can suppress some of the power. Vegas implied total is pretty low, but doesn't feel all that appealing to me. How about to you?
Yeah, Toronto's not really one of those teams that I love to attack. Just looking at the projection I'm getting on Rasmussen, doesn't look like he'll be overly important to me tonight. Not looking like we're getting much ownership. I just got that loaded into my table here. So at 7,700 on FanDuel, handful of points, 8,900 on DK is definitely too much for him here. Maybe a couple FanDuel shares creeping around the edges, but there's just so much pitching. I don't think we need to go there. 23% strikeout rate guy this year, pitching well, a 3.31 xFIP, a 0.96 whip, 11.2% induced swinging strikes, a little too much hard contact, but I think we can, I think we can safely bypass him without really risking too much of a major performance here.
Yeah. And Toronto, it's just going to be one of those days in the old top stacks tool where you're going to see a lot of positive leverage for a lot of these offenses that are expensive. People want to get up to Scherzer, some of these other guys. I'm with you where if we embrace the chaos, I might find myself onto a little bit of Toronto on the front half of that lineup. Not a good ballpark, not the best matchup on planet Earth, but George Springer, Vlad Guerrero, Teoscar Hernandez, all these guys I want shares of. I'm okay on a 13-game slate, making them a team that I get a couple % of. How about you?
Yeah, for the Blue Jays side of things, everybody on that lineup is currently tracking at 0.5% ownership on both sides, unless I screwed something up. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, that's they're on my list of teams that I will always go to when positively leveraged. And you name the hitters at the top end. Teoscar Hernandez being back in this lineup is a big boost to where they were over the beginning of the season. Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladdy, Teoscar, Lourdes Gurriel, Matt Chapman in there. Definitely a lineup that I can stack at least like 1 through 7.
All righty. Well, on the Tampa Bay side, I was saying this before, Kevin Gausman is going to be very popular. That always makes me kind of think, oh, well, can I stack up the team on the other side? And I think you can when you have G-Man Choi, when you have, Kevin Kiermaier hitting a baseball competently. That's the nicest thing I've said about him in a while. Brandon Lau, you can always play at second. Decent enough contact guys in Margot, Diaz or Ramirez, if either of them are in that lineup. And for sure, Wander Franco. How do you feel about Tampa Bay up against the second most popular pitcher on the slate?
Yeah, I don't mind rolling some dice against the popularity of Gausman here. It's a good enough lineup. They've got some standout players like Wander Franco, like Brandon Lau with all his power. I don't love the lineup. Like they work in weird ways. They look like a collection of, semi-flawed players, but they just make it work in Tampa Bay. That's what they always do. So yeah, I would look at guys like G-Man. I would look at guys like Manny Margot, Randy Arozarena from the bottom of the lineup. I'll throw in Brett Phillips is semi-interesting. He's a post-hype prospect at this point, but he's a guy who was well regarded years ago and has just kind of scuffled along through his major league career here and there. But he does have a little bit of pop. He does have a little bit of speed. 63 plate appearances, 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases. He's only slashing 158, 226, 263 going into yesterday. So whatever he might have done yesterday. But I think, he's semi-interesting at 2,200 at the bottom of the lineup. Mike Zunino can hit a home run against anybody. He barrels the ball like crazy. So yeah, I can get to some Rays here.
All right. Well, we go to the game that tale of two pitchers. That's correct. That's the right way of looking at it. Seattle going against the Mets there in New York, plus 190 here from the Seattle side. 3 implied runs. Why is it so low? Well, Max Scherzer is on the mound going up against Marco Gonzalez, and I could not look at 2 pitchers more differently in a million years. Let's start with Max Scherzer because he's the more pressing issue that we have here. How do you prioritize who's obviously, I think, the guy that you want to get to the most, all ownership not considered, but ownership considered, going to be popular? And you just said you're going to be spraying the board a little bit more when it comes to tournaments. He's 41% on DraftKings right now. For FanDuel purposes, 26.5%, the most popular pitcher on both sides. How much Max Scherzer do you want in your life today, Terry?
I'll probably have a good amount. I'll probably be, if the field's like we're at 26.5 on FanDuel, I'll probably be 18 to 20, maybe 22, like somewhere in there, but with a slight undercut to the field's number, just because it is a big slate, 13 games, just because we do have a lot of good pitching, some positively leveraged pitchers that I do like. I can't overload myself on Max at the top of the board, even though he's sitting, top on, let's go to the FanDuel board so I can talk about the one pitcher site. He's sitting as our top FanDuel pitcher with a 10% probability being the best pitcher. Then you get immediately into Gausman and a couple other guys in like the 7s, the mid 5s, but some of those guys are positively leveraged and positively, like I'm interested in positively leveraged Max Fried. I'm interested in positively leveraged Yu Darvish on the same side of the other, on the other side of the same game. Slightly negatively leveraged Clayton Kershaw and Garrett Cole are interesting to me when that slight negative leverage comes at only 10% raw ownership. Logan Webb at positive leverage still interests me. So there are pitchers that I want to get to on here. I think Dane Dunning could be interesting at positive leverage and at a pretty cheap price. So there's just some spots I want to spread some ownership around to, but I love Max. I will always roster Max Scherzer. I think it's a good spot for him. Nothing not to like about a 34.3% strikeout rate, a 2.76 xFIP, a 0.95 whip. It just goes on and on. It's Max Scherzer.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I need to back test. And obviously, there's no CSVs on FanDuel, and it sucks. But it was a slate with Carlos Rodon where he was like 11-1. And I started going through the permutations of what if I just play 100% of Carlos Rodon? What if I just go onto the board on certain days and I say, you know what? This guy is more than likely going to finish around 50. He ended up putting up like 58 or something that day, I believe. And it gives me access specifically on a massive slate like this. This isn't a 3 or a 4 game slate where certain things need to kind of fix and mold there. But what really matters is that you get your stacks right. I think we can kind of agree on that when it comes to FanDuel. Your pitcher needs to be serviceable, and then you need to get the stacks right, right?
Yeah, you either, if somebody runs away from it, you need to have that guy. Otherwise, you want to have somebody economical who is in the group of guys that are scoring between like 30 and 40 FanDuel points. If it's that kind of a night, you just want the most economical one of those guys from an ownership and a salary perspective. So, and then you got to get the bats right, like you said.
So with a guy like Max Scherzer today, where he's 10-7, that's cheaper than 11-1, and I can play any stack that I want to. Yes, including like the Angels, where it would be like Ohtani, Trout. You end up with like 2,400. I was building some lineups before the show because what else would I do at 6:30 a.m.? But I definitely think that one thing I'm considering doing more and more for FanDuel purposes, because of that Rodon slate, it got me thinking about it. I've been doing it a lot with Woodruff over there. I played like 78% Woodruff the other night. Specifically, there's just these guys, or Corbin Burns was who I did it with. 78% Corbin Burns, not Woodruff, but I've been playing like double the field on ownership for some of these top end guys on massive slates, simply because I feel like there is such security going to them. And I'm mixing and matching so many different teams underneath the branch. And I know a lot of people are going to land into some of the same stacks as well, but it's just something I've started toying with a little bit more. Not really something I had thought about a whole heck of a lot, but I was seeing a lot of, I was trying to track certain pros as far as like some of their results for things. And it feels as though maybe being double on a Max Scherzer on a day like today and just taking your shots, trying to get so many different stacks underneath Max Scherzer isn't the worst way to go. I'm with you. I think it's a positive leverage, and you're trying to get through the cracks no matter what. And obviously, if you get down to a $7,000 Nick Pavetta up against Texas, which is something we'll talk about, or something like that, I get completely different bats from the field. But I don't know. It's just something I wanted to ask you about because you're the blue site expert, and it's something I've just been toying with a little bit more.
Yeah, it's something I talked about with Neil a couple of weeks ago, oddly also around the Rodon slate, where there were just a lot of other options that were, not overly
inferior.
Yeah, and it was one of those slates where if I can get even that mediocre performance from Rodon, where he goes out, gives up 3-4, strikes out 6, 7, something like that, and gives me the 40 and change type of FanDuel performance. It was a night where it was just him and a bunch of clunkers. So I was like, none of these other guys are even reliable or likely to get me more than 30, where I think there's still a good chance, even in a bad start, Rodon's going to get me 40. On that kind of a night, I'll be happy to overload. On this kind of a night, I think I'm still more inclined to spread out. I don't think it's necessarily a mistake to double up on Scherzer. What it's going to do, though, is it's going to limit your shares. Like if you're going to, let's say 50% Max Scherzer, we're currently 26, so let's just call it 50%. You're carving out like 25% there where you could be spreading around to some of the positively leveraged Logan Webbs, the Clayton Kershaws, these guys who are not Max Scherzer, but on that next tier, who if Max goes out, the Mariners are a capable offense. So if Max goes out, gives up those 3-4, ends up with 5 strikeouts instead of 10 strikeouts, now he's got that game that's come back to the pack. And there are a lot of guys in this pack that I think could catch that game.
Yeah.
If Max goes out and has the apex game, you want to have that double the field mark. So it's that give and take. But I think on a slate like this, it comes down to how is he relative to the other potential performances. And of course, there's those wild cards that you can't account for, but you got to, kind of zero in on who else is on the slate when you're making that decision. I don't think it's wrong. I do think it's an interesting game theory proposition for a slate like this. I'd be curious to see how it comes out.
Yeah, again, this is not something that, again, I like to play the game theory aspect of it. Yesterday, I played a pitcher that was sub 1% in everything, and it worked out simply because of the bats I got. It was also a 3, or in FanDuel's case, a 4-game slate. A little bit different than a 13-gamer that we have in front of us. So I thought it was a good talking point. This is the strategy show after all, so I thought it would be something to talk about here.
Out,
yeah.
About these things.
Well, there's
games on this slate.
Yeah, we're not going to keep Mike here until 4 p.m. his time. That would be good.
We'll just run this right into live before lock later. I'm on that show too. I got nowhere else to be.
Oh my God. Well,
I do think that's the important stuff to talk about. When people mention in chat, like, just get to the games. Like, this is the stuff that's critical. And this is the lineup building, the keys to lineup building. The other thing I'll throw into that equation is if you're loading up that much of an expensive guy who, like, Max, one of the top end prices on the table, if you're getting double the field on him, you're going to be walking a lot of lineups into the same value stacks, not necessarily the same top stacks. You'll spread out nicely across the top stacks, but I get concerned about the amount of, all right, 4 of these hitters are in the 2000s. So that team, the Orioles, let's say, is just naturally getting swept into your lineups, and you get overloaded to the same chalky value stacks. So something I try and do when I do get overweight to the star caliber pitchers is to focus on which lineups they're going in with, particularly on the value end. If I can get to like Max and let's say Yankees, just to pick a chalky good team that's popular all the time, I'll do that in the overloading process while focusing in on, all right, let me just take these 20% owned value guys and put in these 5% owned value guys as my point of differentiation. Because at that point, those teams are essentially the same anyway.
Yep. Well, let's keep it going here. Marco Gonzalez, my God. What if I told you Marco Gonzalez was the top projected value on FanDuel at 5,800? Would that intrigue you to roster any of a guy that I can't remember the last time I rostered him?
I can't imagine 5,800 against. I don't love it. I do see the 11.4 value score there. I'm certainly not going to Zach Greinke in Coors Field at a 9.6 value score from lower in the probability board. If you're looking for that $5,800 price, I think he might be your best bet. I don't know that we need to go quite that far down the board. Like, I'd rather go to Eduardo Rodriguez, even a lefty against Baltimore, who is, frisky against lefties over time, but not this year. I'd probably rather get my discount there for more money, admittedly. Maybe some shares of $7,000 Pavette against Texas. I have a hard time believing in Marco in this spot. 14.3% strikeout rate, a 4.81 xFIP, a 1.62 whip this year, inducing a 6.6% swinging strike rate, also known as not good, 21.9% CSW. There's not a lot to see with Marco. Throw all that on top of a 41.8% hard hit and an 11% barrel rate. I'm way more interested in the Mets side of that equation.
Stealing my vernacular. I love it. I feel endeared by it. Hashtag not good. Hashtag don't roster. Stuff like that. I love it. New York Mets up against left-handed pitching on the season. Shouldn't surprise anybody. They're pretty freaking good. They're just a good baseball team in general. Actually, against lefties, 90 WRC plus. Am I looking at that correctly? I might be looking.
I'm looking at
correctly.
Yesterday. Yeah, it looks like the lefty numbers are actually
much worse. I had it on righty splits, and then I moved it over. I just expected, New York Mets, 120 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. Well, against lefties, substantially worse. Oh my God, I can't talk
bananas because they have nothing but good right-handed hitting in that.
Yeah, it's literally
good switch hitters.
Yeah, especially when you poo-pooed on the good name of Jeff McNeil yesterday from the left side. It's whatever. We get Lindor. Mark Hanna just got done going berserk and ruining the slate and crushing my hopes and dreams last time. So you can continue to roster him. He'll be in the middle of that order. So I like the Mets side. Definitely no Seattle for me, though.
Yeah, I don't think I'll need any Seattle shares. Maybe if one or two creep in around the edges. I do like some of these bats. I talk about them a decent amount, but I don't think we need to attack Max Scherzer here with that team. But I like the Mets, and I like the ownership numbers on the Mets. Everybody under 5% on both sites. That's pretty intriguing to me. Some pretty fair pricing up and down that lineup too. Alonso's really the only super expensive guy. So I'm inclined to go to some Mets here, and I think those stats are going to get a lot healthier against left-handed pitching after tonight. So it should be interesting.
Agreed. Also agreed. Awesemo Plus tools and content, the best in the industry. Right now, you can get them for $29.95 for the weekly pass or $18.95 if you want to check out everything that we have just for baseball. But I don't know why you wouldn't want to get the $11 to be able to get the top drivers tool for NASCAR, the top golfers tool for PGA, all the player projections, ownership projections. It's as good as it gets. So $29.95 right now for the weekly pass of all of that. But again, if you just want MLB, if you want the top stacks tool, top pitchers tool, projections, ownership, all of those goodies for MLB, that is $18.95. So stop guessing, start winning, and join us here at Awesemo Plus today. All right, Terry, my friend, 10 games we got left to go. Again, caught the hiccup at the beginning of the show. I hope Greg's okay. I haven't said that yet. I hope the power's coming back for him, but
I hope so too.
You know what?
I got to say, I only live, I think, like 40 minutes north of Greg, maybe somewhere around there. And it's pretty nice day out here. So I don't know what knocked his power up. And certainly wasn't the weather. Maybe he just wanted brunch or something,
That's what it was. It was just unplugged the router and froze on his face. It's the same thing as our friend Mike Lawrence here, the producer there. He's FBI informant, just a seed planted there in Philadelphia in order to take down the organization. In public. Yeah, when we see him hanging out with Ben Simmons later, we'll know what's up. I know you guys are best friends. Stop it. Stop the lies. Baltimore Orioles, 3.4 implied runs going up against the Tigers. Your boy Erod, and yes, I say your boy Erod on the bump for Detroit, going up against Jordan. Well, I'm just saying. We know Terry unplugged Greg's power to get on the show. Yes, we do. We absolutely do, Chris Karen, coming from the top row, just keeping everybody in check here. But Jordan Lyles, your elaborate plan worked, Terry. Welcome to the show. Jordan Lyles, no interest whatsoever in God's green earth, right?
In Lyles? No. I don't need to go to Jordan Lyles here. Definitely not for 7,900 on FanDuel. If you wanted to take some weird shots at 5,400, he is going up against the Tigers, I guess, as an SP2 in very limited shares. Under probably 5% or less on DK, but you could take a couple shots, I guess, if you wanted to. There is not much to see there with Jordan Lyles. 17.6% strikeout rate, a 4.22 xFIP. You're hoping he pitches you a clean 5-6 innings of an SP2 kind of a game.
All righty. And then we got Max Scherzer there. 34. Oh, wait, Max Scherzer. I looked at the wrong sheet. There we go. Eduardo Rodriguez. That's who I wanted to talk about. Literally said your boy, because I'm with you. I think he's one of the unluckiest pitchers of the 21st century. Like, it's pretty incredible how unlucky he is as a pitcher, because the strikeout stuff has traditionally always been there. It's a little bit lower this season, 23%. 3.79 expected ERA. So he's still being a real good life pitcher, but it just seems like he runs into these innings where he has to throw 35, 40 pitches and just doesn't get himself along. However, this is an Orioles team that, sure, they've shown some upside and some righty power, but I don't think Mountcastle, he got late scratched yesterday. We'll see if he ends up back in that lineup today, though. But I'm just fine rolling out some Eduardo Rodriguez today, and I'm sure you are too. Give me the case for Erod on today's slate.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there. You know, one of the unluckiest pitchers in baseball over the last few years. Typically always an inflated batting average on balls in play against, typically much better in the expected under the covers numbers than he is on the surface on the back of the baseball card. That's held up this year. The batting average on balls in play is actually interestingly pretty low this year. It's 247, but he's still managed to get unlucky. 44% strand rate. He's sitting at a 4.50 ERA for the season, but a 3.88 xFIP, a 3.81 xERA. So he's been pitching a little bit better than he's looked on the surface. Last year, a 4.74 ERA, but a 3.43 xFIP. Has a decent strikeout rate through most years in his career. Last year, he was 27.4. He's got a couple 25s, 26s on here. This year, 23% with an 8% walk rate. He is a capable, good pitcher. He's just basically the opposite of what Jeff McNeil does in the batter's box, where he just gets lucky all the time. I'm actually in my sick brain now wondering what Jeff McNeil would hit if he could spend his entire career hitting off Eduardo Rodriguez. He'd be like a 750 hitter for his career. Looking at the Orioles going into yesterday, this team against lefties, 0.098 ISO was 25th in baseball. A 27.2% strikeout rate was 27th in baseball. 16% worse than average creating runs against lefties. A 23rd ranked 1.74% home run rate. Every good reason in the world outside of his bad luck, which you just don't want to believe in or buy into, to roster Eduardo Rodriguez here. 16% owned on FanDuel for 7,200. I'll definitely take some shots there. I wish he was lower owned. I'm surprised he's that popular. Same thing on DK, 30% popularity, 7,100. Surprised he's that popular, but I think he's worth it.
All righty. Well, looking at the lineup still, Baltimore, it's hard to say on a 26 team slate that I'm going to be landing on any kind of meaningful shares of them. Maybe I get a couple of those righties. Cedric Mullins, you can play against anybody, but for the most part, I just am pretty unenthusiastic about this entire game outside of Erod. Anything from Baltimore you want to shout out?
I would probably grab just a handful of shares if I'm really loading up on Erod. Say I decide, all right, I want 25% Erod to the field, 16%. Let me get over the top here and buy some bats. I would probably throw in 5 or 6 Oriole stacks. And it would be targeting specifically around Mullins, Hayes, Mancini, Santander, and Jorge Mateo. Really nobody else in that lineup. Maybe you could talk me into a Phil Nevin. Maybe you could talk me into a Tyler Nevin in the middle of that lineup there. But yeah, I don't love the team. I don't love the matchup. They did perform well against lefties. Jorge Mateo coming to life a little bit this season, getting regular playing time, a little bit of pop, ton of speed. But yeah, it's a flawed lineup going up against a pitcher that I do think is talented. So I don't love it. I'll have some insurance.
What do you think? And again, this isn't something I ever look at, but it's more of just because I was curious and it's hilarious. Which batter? Well, so it's Austin Meadows. I just want you to guess, though. How many fantasy points on DraftKings do you think he averages per game?
Like 6.
6.3. How many do you think second averages on that team Javier Baez?
3.8.
5.6. It's like this.
Higher than I thought.
This lineup is just so bad, and they have a 4.1 implied run total. I would have to really stare at the board if I had legalized sports betting in my state. Check out Odd Shopper. Pretty sure we're putting out some great content there now. Home runs, things of the likening, opportunities for you to bet. But I would be looking at shorting this 4.1 implied run total here for the Detroit Tigers, even against Jordan Lyles. I think I'm talking myself into some shares of him just because of how bad this Detroit offense is. Anything stick out to you? Because this is a decent enough implied total compared to other teams on the slate here at 4.1, but I just still can't do it.
Yeah, they've been one of baseball's worst after being frisky for a lot of last year. They've been one of baseball's worst teams against both hands this year. Against righties going into yesterday, 30th with a 0.080 ISO, 30th with a 74 WRC plus, a 26% worse than average creating runs, 30th with a 1.24% home run rate, 23rd with a 24.1% strikeout rate. that might be more reason to go to Jordan Lyles at that 2.8% and 5,400 on DK. I still don't know if I want to get there at 79, but with maybe a lack of discounted pitchers, maybe I will grab a few additional shares of Jordan Lyles, throw in a couple into the mix on FanDuel, hope for a weird one. It's more important on the DK slate, though. I think that is actually kind of appealing there now. The interesting thing about Meadows, you mentioned he's the highest average fantasy point performer. He hasn't hit any home runs yet this year.
None.
Sitting at 281, 378, 365. Creating runs 30% better than average overall because he's getting on base a lot and he's hitting for decent average and hitting atop the lineup, but no power from him. This lineup has been basically bereft of power up and down. Javi Baez, 2 home runs, Candelario, 2 home runs, Scope, 2 home runs, Spencer Torkelson, 3 at the bottom of the lineup, but hitting 149, 267, 264, creating runs 23% below average. This is a bad baseball team. I don't really need shares, and they're over-owned. You're pulling 20% on Javi Baez on FanDuel, 15 on DK. Other guys, in and around that. I don't really want to go to the Tigers here. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm either dramatically undercut, maybe have a couple shares around the edges, but definitely not a focus stack at that ownership and this kind of performance.
All right, everybody smash the like button as we continue on here. Just good to see everybody hanging out here early in the morning. This strategy show will live on forever and ever on the Awesemo YouTube page. Check it out here. If you guys want to refresh anything, if you guys want to have us go, or if you want to just check out anything that Terry or myself had to say, or Greg for the half a game that he was able to cover, you guys have an opportunity to do so here. So check out the video whenever you want. Obviously, Terry will also be on live before lock here later in the day with Gun Dacker, I believe, right?
Yeah, me and cool. Gun should be a good one.
All right, but smash the like button.
He's my lucky charm now.
I was gonna say, what a joke. I mean, this guy is just he's a print factory for you. It's good stuff. Yeah. San Diego Padres, 3.2 runs here going up against the Braves in Atlanta. Generally going to be a better ballpark, and we're starting to see some heat around, but it cooled off substantially in Atlanta now. It's 75 degrees with a little bit of moisture in the air, not tons of humidity, so less enthusiastic about it being a great hitting environment as what I was last week, but I digress. Yu Darvish, Max Fried on the mound, both pitchers that are fantastic, I think, in real-life purposes, for DFS purposes. But Yu Darvish, let's start with him because there's some concerning stuff I have in terms of his upside for this go-around this season. Just a 20.4% K percentage. And of course, that sticks out. So you want to find out exactly what could be going on with it. He's throwing that same combination that he's had always of four-seamer, cutter, everything else. But the cutter, he's really, really topped off. He was throwing it 40.5% of the time in 2020. He's now throwing it less than his four-seamer, and his four-seamer has nothing that really intrigues me. 15.3% whiff percentage on this season. Going back to last year, it had a lot more movement on it. There's kind of some concerns that I have there. It's a good real life pitch. He's keeping people in check. 460 expected slugging with that pitch. But if he's going to be throwing that more than the cutter, more than the slider, both of those are pitches that I think have more whiff potential. I don't really know how much I want to get to him against a potent Braves offense. What sticks out to you with Darvish?
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't actually had time to, obviously not knowing I was going to be here. Hadn't really dug into.
It's not your fault. I just go on Savant and I'm like, oh, these are interesting numbers. Let's find out why.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it as you're talking through it. And that's kind of interesting. That pitch mix is essentially what he was throwing 2019 and 2018 when he had those struggles. So that's really interesting. I'm not sure why he changed, but he made that change, started throwing the cutter a lot more and came back to life in 2020 and somewhat in 2021. That's concerning if he's made that change and that's going to be a permanent thing. Could just be a product of, pitching into certain situations that just call for that pitch mix. And maybe it's not strategic. It's just situational, but it's extended over 33 and a third now. So definitely something to watch there. Going up against a Braves lineup that does have strikeouts in it, but just is great offensively. It's concerning if he's not going to be picking that up. But what I do like, 9,400, I think for you, Darvish, is probably about right. 8,500, definitely a nice price for him at only 10.9% ownership on DK and only 3.4% owned on FanDuel. I will take shots with you, Darvish, at 3.4% ownership just based on the pedigree, the track record, based on the 29th ranked 25.2% strikeout rate that the Braves bring to the table on the other side. They're great for run creation. They're great for power. He might get dinged, but I think at that ownership, you can take some shots. Even if you're 10, 12%, you're 3x, 4x the field. So I can take some shots on Darvish here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it all makes sense to take some shots there. Atlanta going up against righty pitching on the season, 96 WRC plus, so a little bit below average, and a 24.9% K percentage. So I mean, it's up there, sixth worst in baseball. So I think there's opportunities to get more strikeouts. I just don't know if he's going for them right now, and that's what's kind of worrisome to me. He is 35 years old. He's only getting older, not getting younger. So, I mean, mid-90s fastball still, just something that I was trying to figure out why the K percentage is. Whenever you see something like that from a pitcher who's traditionally been for a career near 30% strikeout rate, and he's a 2/3 of that, you kind of want to try to find out why. So, you Darvish, I'm a little less enthusiastic about, simply because I think on the other side of this game, Max Fried is kind of like all systems go against the San Diego lineup. And sure, Eric Hosmer, Jurickson Profar, Manny Machado, Austin Nola, Cronenworth, all five of those guys batting at the top of the order, strike out less than 20% of the time. But on FanDuel specifically, Max Fried's just a freaking good pitcher. 24.6% K percentage, literally walks nobody, 1.4% walk rate on the season. I know you were talking about him being somebody that you might want to roster as well. What sticks out to you with Max Fried?
It's similar to what I was saying about Darvish, just the fact that he's only 4.8% owned over there on FanDuel. As you go down the probability board on both sites, Fried and Darvish going against each other are our first two positively leveraged pitchers. If you're sorted by probability, they're the first two guys with strong probability that come up positively leveraged too. So I'll have shares of both sides of this one. I do like Max Fried quite a bit, 24.6% strikeout rate this year. You mentioned the excellent walks, 2.56 xFIP, a 0.84 whip, inducing a 13% swinging strike rate. All of that better than last year. Last year, 23.7% strikeout rate, 11.1% swinging strike. So he's getting more swing and miss, pitching really effectively in the zone a little bit more as well. The CSW percentage is up. The hard hit is down from an already excellent 34.3 last year to 33 this year. Barrels are down. Pitching really, really well. So you got to like the opportunity for Max Fried here. What I will say, the Padres, there was one name on that list that you mentioned that I do think is a good long-term player, and that's Manny Machado. Eric Hosmer, I think, has proven himself to be, very Eric Hosmer-y, and I think will come back to earth over time, but is playing over his head. And he has those spurts over time. So he's, playing like that guy that we thought he would be for a little while. But collectively, this team has overperformed this year against left-handed pitching, even without Fernando Tatis. I've kind of, been away from the Padres in terms of quality through most of the season. It holds up against righties, but against lefties, 171 ISO is sixth in baseball, believe it or not, 18% better than average. Against lefties is sixth in baseball. A 4.12% home run rate is third in baseball. This is all, again, going into yesterday. So they're right there this year against lefties. So maybe I'll grab a few insurance stacks. They're 0.5% owned on both sites. I definitely want to have some Max Fried here, though. And I believe in him more than I believe in what the Padres have done against lefties so far this year.
All right. Well, from the Atlanta side, on the other side of this one, I have some interest in Matt Olson. I have some interest in those guys going up against Darvish. I want to have some one-offs there. Darvish isn't popular enough for me to want to full stack and go nuts with Atlanta a bunch today. It's more muted, mid-70s weather there in ATL, but pay attention. Acuna didn't play Wednesday. He has some kind of a groin issue. It doesn't seem it's going to be like a major issue for him going forward, but just be on the lookout. If he's not going to be in the lineup today, it might look like something where, he's striking out 37% of the time on the season, but he's kind of a career 24% strikeout guy. And you know who would replace him is Guillermo Heredia, 48.6% K percentage, or Travis Demeritte, 32.1% so far this season. So I think maybe Darvish has a little bit more potential as I'm looking at it if you don't get Acuna in that lineup for sure. But I'm still going to have some pieces here and there. That's something else to look out for. Anything from Atlanta that really sticks out to you that you want?
They're on my list of just if they're positively leveraged, I can go there. So I imagine just looking at these ownership shares, I'm not looking at the top stacks tool right now, but just looking at the ownership shares, they look pretty low owned across the board, except for Acuna, who I agree, I'm probably not going to be in the lineup today. So still top to bottom, it's a team that I can always go to. If they're not going to get struck out against a guy like Darvish, maybe they do make some contact, drive the ball a little bit. I can roster Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Ozzie Albies against anybody. I'll take shares of Adam Duvall. I'll take shares of Demeritte if he's in the lineup. Dansby Swanson, I absolutely adore from the bottom of the lineup for super cheap and no ownership on basically any slate. If you need a shortstop, just plug in Dansby. So yeah, I can roster some Braves, maybe a little bit more enthusiastic about including them in my portfolio of lineups than you are.
Oh, well, I'm enthusiastic about having a couple. I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Darvish is a guy that
I might get to a few more than that.
Gotcha. Ooh,
Not overloaded, but
okay.
maybe a few more.
Well, I'm here for
like
it.
If I'm 10%ish on Darvish shares, I might be around that on stacks of Braves too.
Aaron D, it's 75. It's not like 85 like it's been earlier in the week in Atlanta here. And plus we have like 91 degrees in Texas, 85 and crazy humid in St. Louis at first pitch there. It's even 82 here in LA today. So it's going to be a warm one.
91 in Chicago yesterday. I didn't even realize that during the afternoon.
Yeah, it was warm, not ideal. It's coming. Summer is coming, maybe, for all of you people in the Midwest.
Did you see that first Stanton home run yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh my God. 115.7 miles an hour at 17-degree average launch angle. And it was never more than 20 feet off the ground. The thing was missing.
This is my highest known batter on both sites, so I was okay with it.
Mine too, and he was my home run
love
call.
Him. Did you know? So again, I have the Yelich connection when he played in Miami with Stanton and whatever else. Mm-hmm. Did you know that Giancarlo Stanton does not lift weights?
Really?
He does band weights. He doesn't lift actual weights. He does bands, only band resistance training.
Interesting.
Thought that was fascinating.
I wonder if that's been long-term, or maybe that was something new to like work with his injury history better. Like maybe, they realized a little bit less, however it works.
I guess he's always done it. It's something that he likes to do. He works out with bands and does everything with bands. And again, I don't know how much of that is all true and whatever else. I don't know if that's just arms and upper body. And then if he does legs, because he looks like Adonis. Like when he was rounding the bases after getting booed, they were just like, did you see the clip? It was like, Stan, you suck. And then he hits a home run that goes 116 miles an hour and he's rounding the bases and he just looks like a Greek god.
Yeah. I mean, these Yanks, they look like a different species. Some of these guys, like Aaron Judge, like if we're considering me a human being, like he is some elevated form of human being. Like he is that next level of evolution. Like you wouldn't put me next to him if the aliens come down and have them think that we're the same thing. Like that just wouldn't work. They'd be like, okay, he is obviously your leader and you are some peasant or from some subspecies. All right, cool.
One of these is not like the other.
Several guys like that. But I think like that about a lot of professional athletes. I also have a weird thing where like I'm 43 now, but I see these guys and like Aaron Judge, like to me, it's still in my head, like from growing up or whatever, ball players are older than me. Right. Like I just, Aaron Judge is like 10, 15 years younger than I am, but it's just in my head that these guys are older than me. It's such a weird little thing.
This is the weird one that I saw yesterday. I'm 34 years old. Al Horford's only 35. It's Ouch. Like, I'm a year younger than Al Horford. Al Horford?
Dude, your window of time to become an NBA player is dramatically, it's really closing fast. You got to
get the fuck out of here and go to the gym. Let's go. I gotta keep my youthfulness. Here we go. Boston Red Sox 4.2 applied runs at Texas Rangers 4.3. It's 91 degrees in Texas in old Arlington. Not a dry heat. It's a humid heat. Nick Pavetta is on the mound. Dane Dunning. Here we go. Nick Pavetta. I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to recommend Nick Pavetta today because the Texas Rangers, you talk about this lineup, you get Corey Seager, and I'd say he's still relatively below expectation for what they were expecting to get out of him. But in 81 WRC plus with just a 107 ISO versus right-handed pitching for the season, that being the Texas Rangers, I have to be firing on all cylinders with a pitcher that I still believe in, Nick Pavetta. I think it's going to continue to get better for him, even though he's been giving up a lot of hard contact, 50.6% hard hit percentage. The Ks are there, 24.2%. It's a mid-range option kind of Ks. He's around a 25% strikeout guy for his career. Are you as dangerous as me and feeling like you want to roster Nick Pavetta on a two-pitcher site?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did we not both get overloaded to a pitcher that we've never heard of against this team yesterday?
Oh yeah, we totally did that. I did. I'm
happy. Yeah, happy to go to a Nick Pavetta here at essentially no ownership for 7,000. Pavetta 24.2% strikeout rate. He's walked too many this year, 10.8%, but still a 4.07 xFIP. 10.5% swinging strikes. You'd like to see that higher. CSW, I'd like to see higher. I'd like to see the hard hit rate lower. There's a lot of flaws because Nick Pavetta is a flawed pitcher, but he was a 26.5% strikeout rate over the extended year last year in 155 innings. He can go out against this team and pitch a very nice game with a lot of strikeouts in it. For price and for ownership, I actually really want to get to that. I think that's going to be a major target for me in putting this slate together. This is a spot where some of those shares where I'm saying like I'll be under the field on Max. If I undercut Max by 10 percentage points, I'm going to throw a few of them to Nick Pavetta here. I'll probably throw a few of them at Dane Dunning on the other side of this game. I think he's interesting as well for price. There's just, these are the pockets of low ownership and cost that I was talking about at the beginning of the show that I think are just interesting to dump some shares into.
I'm with you. I can't get away from it. Going through this slate, I can't believe I want to back a guy with a 1.61 whip in 90-degree temperatures against a team that traditionally, you look at some of the lefties and you're like, it doesn't feel good, but I'm going to do it. So best of luck to me on the other side of this.
And to be clear about the thing with the kid from the Royals yesterday, we're not looking at the same kind of slate where 10 points is still maybe going to get us there, right? We do need a performance from Pavetta.
Yes.
We need that, 25er. We need that 35er on FanDuel. So if he gets there and you get the middling kind of a game from guys like Max, guys like Kershaw, we could get there with Pavetta today. So I think there's enough on the bone to make
the Kansas City pitcher also got late added to the FanDuel slate. He got added in the afternoon. He was 0.6% owned in the $44 for the Q. He was 0.2% owned in the 100. And so it was like, I got a pitcher on a 3 or a 4 game slate. There were only 8 pitchers to be had. The next lowest owned pitcher was 8%, and that was her. So I completely different situations. There's
a kid against a bad team who had been striking out minor league hitters at a 29% clip.
Exactly.
Like we talked about yesterday. So it was worth doing in my mind. I would make the play again.
Didn't go well, but I would have done it 100 times out of 100.
But like we said,
for my main lineup,
we almost got a bunch of lineups there. So it was almost where it. I would say it
Freddie
did work
Freeman
out. Almost got there.
If he hits that grand slam, I'm probably not on this show. I'm probably hungover in Tahiti right now. It would be a lot of fun. But Zach Greinke here. Oh, wait. Why do I keep doing this to myself? Dane Dunning. There we go. Two very different things, because Dane Dunning I like as a real life pitcher. Just getting so excited to talk Coors Field, even though I'm really not excited that Coors Field is on the slate. But it sounds like it's going to be Dane Dunning. It's not official that it's going to be Dane Dunning. That's who was on FanGraphs, though. So that's who we're going to break down just in the event that he ends up being the guy. He's also listed on DraftKings, so that's a good kind of double up. 3.38 ERA, 1.22 whip. I love the glasses. Great look, Dane Dunning. Keep it going. I think against Boston, there's always going to be some type of interest you have because there's some strikeouts to be had. Trevor Story, Bobby Dahlbeck, JD Martinez, Jackie Bradley, regardless of who the pitcher is, Velasquez or Plawecki, 20% plus K percentage there. I'm okay taking some shots with Dane Dunning, but I'm not going to go nuts the same way that I want to go nuts with Pavetta. What are you planning to do?
I'm a little bit more enthusiastic.
I like him, so thank you.
Yeah. A little bit more enthusiastic. I think it's another target for me where, again, 0.5% owned at 8,000 on FanDuel. Yes, please. Load me up to 8-10%. Let me get well beyond the field there. I think same thing's true. He's discounted to 6,700 on DK, under 2% ownership. This is a guy, he's thrown 32 innings and 6 starts this year. It's a 23% strikeout rate. He's never going to overwhelm with the strikeouts, but he's a really good pitcher. 3.22 xFIP. He's put a couple too many guys on base with a 1.22 whip, but it's negligible because he does give up some hard hit, but he got an average launch angle of 3.4 degrees. Last year, it was 6.8 degrees. So he's keeping the ball down really effectively. He tends to keep the ball in the yard. And you mentioned the Red Sox. They're a good lineup that has tragically underperformed so far this year. I think they're somewhat targetable. There are definitely strikeouts there. But what I like about this kid, if we look at his 6 starts this year, starting from opening day, at Toronto, against the Angels at home, at Seattle, against Houston at home, against the Braves at home, and then at the Yankees. This kid's been pitching against nothing but quality lineups and doing pretty well. 7 strikeout game against the Angels, 7 strikeout game against the Braves, 5 strikeout game in 6 innings against the Yanks, limiting power, only giving up 3 home runs in those starts. I really like what Dane Dunning's done against some very, very good teams this year. So with that track record, with the recent performance and a pitcher that I do believe in, I think the stuff works. He was a highly regarded prospect coming up. I'm happy to get over the field on Dane Dunning here. I think it's a good opportunity.
Well, then let's ride. Bats, it's 90 degrees in Texas. It's always going to be better hitting conditions in May 13th. It's going to be better hitting conditions most of the time, even with the wind blowing in, suppresses some power compared to the old ballpark there. But Boston, if you told me you wanted to stack them up, there's going to be positive leverage going there a lot of the time on these type of slates. So I got to think that he's going to be somebody that you can still roster, or this team is a team you can still roster. I just won't be getting carried away with it. I like Dunning. I like Pavetta. What are you planning to do with Boston?
I'll have some Boston just because they're pretty low owned, everybody in single digits. On the other side, you're getting a ton of weight on that top of the Texas lineup there. So I'll be a lot less interested in them. I'll probably grab some shares just to offset anything I do with Pavetta, but it'll be super limited. And I would prefer to get to bats like Adolis Garcia, Cole Calhoun, maybe, you know, mixed into the middle there. If it, you know, maybe in conjunction with like a Seager who's 12% owned, Marcus Semien 20% owned. So that's kind of ugly, but yeah, I can get behind, especially if I'm overloading on Dunning, I can get behind the idea of grabbing some Devers, Martinez, Bogarts, Verdugo, Story, Franchy Cordero type stacks. They're all going to be super low owns. There's definitely still power there. They just have not performed so far this year against righties so far this year. Going into yesterday, 88 WRC plus was 12% below average. A 1.86% home run rate is 24th. I think we know these guys are better home run hitters than that. They have been good with the strikeouts against righties. Actually, 21% strikeout rate is 10th in baseball against righties. So that's actually another one of those little, you know, nuggets that we uncover as we go through this. But I think Dunning's capable enough, and I think his primary attribute is just going to be suppressing the offense on the other side here.
I'm older than Cole Calhoun by a month.
Oof, man, we're finding out that you're ancient during this show. My God.
34. I'm September, birthday's October. I have no words.
Nothing but down. Yeah.
Mortality.
Part of life
it's coming for us all.
Life stops giving you things and starts taking them away at this point in your life, Eric. You're so old.
Texas Rangers on the other side,
realizing like, oh, there's no players younger than me in these leagues anymore. Shit.
Yeah, we covered this game.
Cologne to retire.
Yeah, we're gonna move on. I just can't even anymore. New York Yankees 4.6 implied run. Chicago White Sox 3.4. By the way, I don't know if you noticed this. We're gonna go over, Mike Lawrence, your loved 20 minutes probably. Just allocate it slightly, just a guess. Garrett Cole on the bump here, going up against Vince Velasquez. Garrett Cole. We got to have some Garrett Cole interest because he's cheating effectively right now. I don't know if you've noticed. Keeps wiping his butt like an ape in the zoo, just goes to his behind, rubs something before every single pitch. Have you noticed, Terry? And is Garrett Cole somebody you want to roster?
The Yanks, just like with their Hunt's ketchup in the stands, the Yankees save money on toilet paper in the clubhouse. He's a little itchy. That's all that's going on.
How much do you want of your cheating pitcher today?
I'll take plenty if he's going to be 10% owned on FanDuel. 10K, I think that's a reasonable price for him. 23% owned on DK at 9,600. Yeah, you can sign me up for that. The White Sox are definitely a capable lineup. They're dealing with a ton of injuries, but this is a relatively good form of their lineup with, you know, even without Eloy in it. So I do think it's an interesting spot. I'll probably take out some hedge stacks with the White Sox there, but Cole, 29% strikeout rate, 3.05 xFIP, inducing a 15.1% swinging strike rate. He'll always have his issues when guys do make contact. They make some hard contact against him. 40.8% hard hit, 6.6% barrel rate. If it was 16, I might be concerned. 6.6% barrel rate in there. A little bit of power every now and again, but nothing really to worry about. It's Garrett Cole. I'll be happy to take some shares if the field's avoiding him.
Yeah, I think that's probably okay. I'll tell you who I really feel uncomfortable about, and that's Vince Velasquez. I've been pretty pro Yankees. This might be the first slate in a long time that the Yankees aren't positively leveraged because I don't know, maybe people are catching on to the fact that every other game they could put up 15 runs. Seems pretty important, but Vince Velasquez at 7,900 on DraftKings is actually projecting out decently for us. I can't imagine that he's going to get any kind of attention on today's slate. He's also the most positively leveraged pitcher in the top pitchers tool. Top pitcher 7% of the or top two pitcher 7% of the time. He's only being owned at 0.5%. I will have more than that. I don't like it, but I will. How do you feel about Vincent Velasquez against your New York Yankees?
I will have 0 shares of Vince Velasquez. I don't think I've rostered him in the past few years. I do not believe in the pitcher. I think he puts way too many guys on base. He's too wild, has no command, gives up power. He's a launching pad. My home run model loves the Yankees here. I understand apparently they're negatively leveraged. I imagine it's slight negative leverage. And just looking at some of the raw ownership numbers, you're getting Rizzo, Stanton, Hicks in the middle of the lineup, all below 5%, DJ below 3% on DK. Only Judge over 10% on either side, or excuse me, Judge and Glaber are over 10% on FanDuel. Everybody under 10% on the DK slate. So even if it's technically negatively leveraged, I think that's low enough that I can just get overweight to Yankee stacks here and just throw darts against Vince Velasquez, who I do not believe in. 45.6% hard hit with a 13.2% barrel rate on a 19.2 degree average launch angle going up against these home run hitters. And that's not an outlier. Last year, 43.3% hard hit with a 12.2 on a 20.6 degree average launch angle. This is a guy who gives up the home run ball. I will take Yankees. I will have no Vince Velasquez.
Yeah, I like the Yankees a lot. I like the Yankees every day if it ends in Y, which I think is every day. So we're going to go with that. The White Sox on the other side going up against Garrett Cole. There used to be some stackability, but you're not exactly getting a discount to find out. Tim Anderson, Yasmani Grandal, Luis Robert. Sure, if you wanted to get to any of them, they're your three most popular batters, and all of them are sub 2.5% on DraftKings. I just don't find them necessary on this slate. How about you?
Yeah, it would only really be, all right, it's a good lineup that's totally under-owned or totally unowned at reasonable prices for their talents. Like Yasmani Grandal is better than a $2,300 player on FanDuel at 0.5% ownership. So I'll be inclined to grab just a couple shares of the top end of this lineup. Not many. They've underperformed against right-handed pitching for the year. The one thing they've been really, really good at is limiting the strikeouts. Going into yesterday, best in baseball against righties with an 18.1% strikeout rate for the active roster. But they were 22% worse than average creating runs with a 78 WRC plus, 22nd ranked 2.01% home run rate. There are good reasons to believe in Garrett Cole here, and there's not a lot going in favor of the White Sox. Very, very limited interest.
All right, before we get to my Minnesota's Twins and fly through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that we have coming up here on the slate, let's do Prize Picks, our sponsor here of the strategy show, of the Live Before Lock shows here at Awesemo. So many different shows that they sponsor, and we could not love them more, because not only are they being friendly to you as the player by giving us promo code Awesemo to use to get you a $100 first match deposit bonus, but you'll also get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum just by signing up using the link in the video description of this video and making a deposit over at Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks, you say? Well, it's a player prop site where you have 2, 3, 4, or 5 players that you put into a lineup, and you can up to 10x your entry fee. You can do multiple sports. It's not just NBA. It's not just MLB, but they have NHL. They have esports. They have JLI. Is that how I say it again, Terry? Help me. Highlight. See, there we go. They have so many different sports: WNBA, boxing, cricket, NFL futures, if you feel so bold. So many different things that you have an opportunity to play over at Prize Picks. A lot of fun, super clean interface. Go download the app in the App Store at Apple App Store, Google Play, or head to prizepicks.com. Sign up, take advantage of this offer. That is promo code Awesemo for $100 first match deposit bonus. And stop guessing, start winning. Join us here at Awesemo Plus, but do it by signing up and getting that free month through our friends at Prize Picks. Thank you so much to them for their sponsorship of this show and so many other shows here on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Let's do it. Cleveland Guardians, 3.5 implied runs at Minnesota Twins, 4.5. My Minnesota Twins getting a lot of ownership today. It seems like every single day, because you have this perfect blend of super cheap bats that might have some upside, and then Byron Buxton heard he's pretty good. That's kind of how it works. And against Aaron Savale, oh boy, I might have too many Twins. But Terry, no Aaron Savale, right?
No, I can't really find a reason to roster him. I mean, 5,900 on DK with nobody on him, 22% strikeout rate. Like, if you're going to those Jordan Lyles for 5,700 shares, if you're willing to do that, there's no reason to not be willing to take 2 or 3 shares and throw them at Aaron Savale. But there's very, very limited expectations for this guy. Over 124 and a third last year, 19.9% strikeout rate. He's a capable guy who can get you through a game cleanly, but I do not see him putting up a big start here. So no real interest there now.
All right. And on the other side of this one, we've got my guy, Sony Gray. It's so weird to watch him pitch in a Twins uniform, I must say. So far on this season, the pitch count hasn't gotten up to any kind of a prominent amount. He had 76 pitches back on the 9th of April, but then only had one other start in the month of April, the 16th, only had 31 pitches, got removed from that one after having some major issues. But then against Oakland, came back, only 66 pitches. I find it hard to believe that he's going to give you more than 75 in this kind of a spot based on what we've seen them just kind of be conservative with him. He performed awesome against Oakland last time out, put up 20.6 DraftKings points, but 6,400. Lots of other places we can go on this slate. It's hard to believe that against Cleveland. Definitely it's tough to find some strikeouts against that. I want to get to Sony Gray. Is he on your board at all?
Probably not. Even at low ownership, like 6,400 and 3.9%, maybe on DK, you could take some shots. 8,500 on FanDuel, I really don't need them. I don't think. I just don't believe in the depth. Maybe for the price on DK, you could squeeze of a little bit of value and you find some strikeouts. But I really don't love that spot, particularly with this Cleveland team, 18.1% strikeout rate. That equals the number that we called out for Chicago, leading the league against right-handed pitching. So they were tied going into yesterday. They've also been great for run creation in the split against righties. 137 WRC plus, second best in baseball, 37% better than average creating runs. I think they've been overperforming, but they've been kind of consistently overperforming, and there are some good hitters, and above all, there are guys who just demonstrably do not strike out in that lineup. So with all that, I think it just really limits the upside for Sony Gray. So no real interest. I think he's doing a lot of work as a pitching coach for the young guys on that team right now, but not much in the actual rotation.
Yeah, I look at this Cleveland team. I don't really think they're going to be any kind of a priority for me whatsoever. If you played J-Ram against anybody, I would never fault you whatsoever. But it looks like a team that on today's slate, there's positive leverage to go there, but not even really that much. I mean, top stack percentage, 3.2%. Ownership share is around 2%. And I think kind of clear cut who I would want to play. Owen Miller. I would play J-Ram. I would play Stephen Kwan. I would play these guys. Naylor. Throw your hands up in the Naylor, 347 with 5 homers, 974 OPS. Good Lord. Those are kind of surprising numbers for a 3,400 Naylor, but nothing I want to get carried away with. How about you, Terry?
That would have worked if his name was Josh Nair and he sold products to remove your hair, but I don't think it really worked there with Nail.
Don't stare. Come on.
It's not fair.
That joke was bare. It's fine.
It was almost there.
Au contraire.
We could do this all day. Taking a look through the top end of the lineup is where you want to be. Jose Ramirez, I'm happy to get to anytime he's 5% owned, 3.5% owned. That said, he's appropriately priced. What I don't like about stacking the guys that you mentioned is that they're not like really discounted in any way, where a lot of these other positively leveraged stacks, you're getting like the star player at an appropriate price, and then a lot of his good teammates kind of underpriced. I think 36 for Owen Miller, 47 on DK is probably pretty appropriate. I think 47 for Stephen Kwan, 31 on, you could argue 31 on FanDuel is a little bit cheap, but I think these guys are like appropriately priced. I don't think we're getting much of a discount there. I can take some shots with a home run hitter like Franmil Reyes. I think Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez are interesting at the back end of the lineup just because nobody goes to them. They've got multi-position eligibility. They're super cheap, and they've got interesting DFS skill sets with power and speed. They're not showing a lot right now, and they hit at the end of the lineup. So it's a flawed way to approach this team. But I do think on good days for the Guardians, those are interesting players to work into stacks. I don't know how much I'll need them today.
Say Andres Jimenez one more time.
Andres Jimenez?
Oh, yeah, that's the good shit. That's really good. Going to the Minnesota Twins side, we got Byron Buxton, Kepler, Yahtzee, like both of them. Miranda's starting to go. You know who's not starting to go is Royce Lewis. He was upset about Correa. Oh, there's not going to be a spot for me. I'm the top prospect. You know what? You might want to hit when you get up here. 294, no homers, no RBIs, 647 OPS. Can't really blame him for RBIs. Not up to him if he's going to be getting hits and nobody's there. But still, I want more, Royce. If you're going to show out, let's go. 4.5 implied total here. It's pretty high up on the board, but they are going to be the second most negatively leveraged team to get to. That's a bummer for me as a Twins fan. Another slate where I probably can't roster them outside of Buxton one-offs. What are you going to do with the Minnesota Twins, Terry?
You know, one-off Buxton at 6,300 and 12%.
I do not care. What do you want? Do you like 40 fantasy points in your lineups? I do.
I like 40 fantasy points in my lineup in conjunction with something else that I can afford to pay for.
That's true.
40 fantasy points with a lot of zeros baked in there from $2,000 players ain't going to get you very far.
It's like a night with me. I'm expensive.
Dude, I mean, 53.2% hard hit with a 25.5% barrel rate for Byron Buxton today. That's worth your $6,300.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I think you can put him in. I don't love this lineup in a lot of ways. Like Luis Arias is a flawed player for fantasy purposes. Great hit tool, but doesn't do a lot otherwise. Jorge Polanco, take or leave on a lot of slates. I do like Max Kepler, his lefty power. I do like Kirilloff and his lefty power in this lineup. I can get to shares of Gary Sanchez, particularly where you need a catcher. Royce, I do think is interesting. I do think that battle come around, but like you you said, it's a good point about why batting average is kind of irrelevant. 291 batting average so far this year, but with no counting stats, not getting on base enough despite the batting average, no ISO to speak of, sub below average creating runs so far. It's a very small sample size. He'll be fine, but batting average just doesn't matter. So that's why we don't care about just the raw batting average being okay. Overloaded ownership for the public. I'll be under the fields. I might have some twin stacks.
I need you all to smash the shit out of the like button for Terry. He subbed late. Like, this guy came in late. Greg went to detention and you came in, you substitute taught with class, with dignity. You're crushing the game. So we appreciate you. That analogy didn't work because it was like a combination of,
Well, kind of did, because chat is probably sitting there throwing spitballs and paper airplanes and stuff like that and going wild and yelling and everything like this. Like, the teacher, the regular teacher from across the hall would definitely have come to my classroom and been like, what the hell is going on with this chat of yours? Like, calm them down. So, you ever see Summer School with Mark Harmon?
No, I didn't.
Oh, Chainsaw and Dave. You don't know that movie?
With Mark Harmon too? Mark Harmon, we're talking like from NCIS Mark Harmon?
Mark Harmon. Mark get corrected by Kevin Costner, Mark Harmon. Yeah. That's an old Bill Simmons thing. Wow. Shout out to Bill Simmons. But Simmons, Mark Harmon, Summer School is a classic movie. I insist the rest of your day, you go watch Summer School at some point. Take 90 minutes, treat yourself. Fantastic 80s movie.
It's my 6-month anniversary, my wife and I. So I have other things I must do. Yeah, I was gonna say this is
6-month anniversary is the watch Summer School anniversary. There's the paper, the gold, the et cetera, et cetera. 6 months, watch Summer School, eat some pizza, something like that.
San Francisco Giants 3.9 implied runs going up against the St. Louis Cardinals 3.6. You know what? I will do it eventually, Terry. I promise you. I promise you I will. We've got Logan Webb on the mound, and he kind of falls into that category of Yu Darvish where I wanted to find out more. Why is this happening? Why is Logan Webb regressing in such a meaningful way? Well, I think for him, it's a little less clear cut just because, you pitch in San Francisco, you can get some of these outlier performances. I don't think anything's like an issue in terms of velocity. He's been a good real life pitcher, limiting hard contact, 3.30 expected ERA. I just think maybe last season was a little bit of a blip on the radar in terms of that K percentage. And now he's regressing back towards the mean for who he is. Low 90s fastball guy, has never really had the velocity. The changeup is really the plus pitch that you're looking at from him. Lots of movement, but I think this is just kind of who he is. He's going to be a guy who can limit some damage and is a good real life pitcher and isn't the K kind of percentage guy that we thought he might be coming off of last season. But anything for Logan Webb you're noticing, because this will be a right-handed heavy St. Louis team, and they generally absolutely demolish lefties, but against right-handed pitching, they're generally below 100 line, the Meridian line at WRC plus at 96 for the season, and just a 119 ISO. Is Logan Webb on your board for today?
He will be, because I think he's a little bit cut down in price for his talent, and he's definitely cut down in ownership for his talent. I love the Cardinal stack. They're on my list of teams when they're positively leveraged. I'm going to go there. I will take out some shares despite the righty struggles. So I'm happy to go to both sides of this equation. Like you said, the Cards, they're first on the board in all 4 of the categories that I look at on the team stats against lefties. 4.71% home run rate at 222 ISO, one of the only good team ISOs in all of baseball against either hand. But against righties, a 131 ISO is 21st in baseball. They're 5% better than average creating runs. That's 15th in baseball. 2.01% home run rate, though, not getting the power that they show against left-handed hitter pitching, or the power that you just think of when you think of Tyler O'Neill, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, these hitters. 18.7% strikeout rate. They've been very good avoiding the strikeouts. What concerns me about Webb is he's got a change in his pitch mix too. He bumped up, he's leading with the change now. So the change is now 37% with 35% on the fastball. Last year, it was 46% on the fastball using the change, 24% with the slider usage at 28. He's kind of leveled those off where he's throwing all 3 pitches around 30% of it. Well, it's 37, 35, 27% to the slider. So the fact that he's now leading with that change and throwing it a lot more is just maybe messing with the mix, how the pitches look, how they work off one another. And I think it's probably why we're seeing the strikeouts down a little. I don't know if they asked him to make a change and he's just kind of working through it, or if this is something mechanical, physical. I'm not sure why he's doing it, but the results aren't there. I mean, the results are there for everything except the strikeouts. Everything else is fine. 3.14 xFIP, fine. Putting a few too many guys on base, but only walking 5.3%. Hard contact is exactly where it was last year. Barrels are exactly where they were last year. It's just the strikeouts that are gone. So I can take some shares and hope that he finds a few additional strikeouts, hope for the cleanly pitched game. 35 FanDuel points is within reasonable expectation.
Jordan Hicks on the mound. Steven Matz ended up getting the start yesterday, pushed Hicks to today. I don't think we're looking at more than 70 pitches for him. I think he falls into that Sony Gray bucket where I don't really know how I land on him. And I especially would prefer Sony Gray if you're asking me between him and Hicks, simply because, Hicks coming out of the bullpen had some flamethrower stuff once upon a time. I don't expect that to be something that happens as much as a starter here in the bigs, but I feel as though Sony Gray still has more upside considering San Francisco up against right-handed pitching confirmed a decent enough thing, especially as they're getting this lineup back to full strength, 110 WRC plus as it is now. But now you get the likes of Lamont Wade, you get Jock Peterson, Mike Yastrzemski, Luis Gonzalez as well. I mean, all four of them from the left side. And then there's that Brandon Belt character, Brandon Crawford. That is 6 lefties I expect in this lineup. You're going to be tough sledding for Hicks. Any Hicks for you?
Think so. Even at the discount on DK, I don't think the pitches are going to be there. I think I'm walking much more into the Giants bat side of this equation. He walks too many. The strikeouts are nice, but he puts too many guys on base, too much opportunity going the other way for a guy who's not going to pitch deep into the game.
All right. In St. Louis, it's 86 degrees. It's humid. It's going to be great hitting conditions. That's why you're seeing a near 4 implied total here for San Francisco, which doesn't sound like much because, this 2022, I guess it should sound anything that has a 4 in front of it should be decent enough, but 3.9 here for San Francisco. I like this lineup. I like the way that it'll grade out for me going forward, specifically against right-handed pitching with all of these lefties. Give me all of them. Even if you get Wilmer Flores in your life, I guess that's an all right thing to have. He's going to be day to day, so be on the lookout. He might not be starting here in this spot. You got Evan Longoria back in the mix. So he had 5 at-bats of uselessness on Wednesday. So just there's that. Sorry to Evan Longoria and his family, but talk to me about San Francisco.
Hey, when you have 5 plate appearances and go completely 0 for the world, your WRC plus comes to, is that a negative 100 or is that just a thing?
Negative 100. It should
negative
be.
100. How about that? So he's 100% worse than average creating. That's so
See, I do know math.
I love Longo.
I know stats sometimes.
I love Longo. I'm happy to put him in the lineup despite the righty, but the focus here is lefties. There's just a lot of quality lefty bats in this lineup, like you just highlighted. So I definitely want to have some Brandon Belt, some Jock Peterson, some Brandon Crawford, some Luis Gonzalez from down the bottom of the lineup, some Yaz. It's a good lefty hitting lineup here. So I can get to a lot of shares of these guys. What I really like is everybody below 5,000 on DK, everybody below 3,300 on FanDuel. These guys are cheap for this spot. Good hitting conditions. An 86 degree day in Missouri sounds like hell to me, but it should be good for baseball. I think it's a really good spot for this offense. So I'll be getting 2 Giants. That's probably well, maybe I'll have more Logan Webb than I will. The Giants side in both the bats and the arm are probably where I'll be heavier than on the card side in this one.
All right. Well, check this out. Juan Yepez. Just what in God's green earth is he doing here? 11 homers in AAA in like the month of April, basically. Gets called up to the bigs and starts hitting immediately. 400 average, 2 homers, 1.155 OPS. Yo, how you doing? Probably going to be batting cleanup at 3,500. That seems like a one-off that I would be interested in having, even up against Logan Webb. But everybody else pretty expensive to stack it all up here. Arenado's up to 6K on DraftKings. Yikes. Goldschmidt, anybody else there? Just not going to be a team that I roster that much. You said you had some Logan Webb interest. I doubt you want to play much from the St. Louis side, but can I talk you into Yepez or maybe Dylan Carlson? Both ways hitter, 3,200. Why not?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for these cards. I can always be talked into them. I like the organization in general. I like the hitters in this lineup. So I can get to some Tommy Edman. I can get to some Goldschmidt, Arenado, Tyler O'Neill. Yepez, definitely super interesting. How good is their AAA team, by the way?
Unreal.
Nolan Gorman up to 13 home runs now down there, 124 plate appearances.
Why isn't he getting called up too? This is just
next on the list.
AAA Memphis, confirmed good ballpark though too. Let it be known.
For sure. But these guys were just mashing down there. So we'll see Gorman up here pretty soon. I'm pretty sure they're certainly not going to stick with the young. There's talk that they might trade for Bogarts if the Red Sox give up, but I think we're just going to see the kids. So I think that makes a ton of sense. So yeah, give me these guys, 1 through 6 Even some Corey Dickerson, if he's hiding down the bottom of the lineup, lefty righty here, maybe a little bit interesting. So I like getting to the cards, but it'll be light just because of my web interest. And, there's not a ton of reason to go to them.
All right. Before we get to the Coors Field talk, best bets package, check it all out. I mean, again, we're going to fly through these last couple because we are 24 minutes over. We'll get there. Again, some glitches on the radar today. No big deal. We're getting it all done. But if you want the best bets in the industry from the likes of Steve Buzzard, Alex Baker, Ben Raza, everybody you could possibly want it from, some of the sharpest minds in the industry, check out our best bets package for NBA, MLB, NHL, so many different things that they'll have involved in that. Get our free bet of the day at Awesemo Best Bets on Twitter. That is at Awesemo Best Bets. Go get that free bet every single day. Check out some of what's behind the paywall there. Good times will be had by all. All right, Kansas City, Colorado, here we go. Wow. I don't really know what to say because you look at Zach Greinke in any ballpark and the guy has a sub 10% K percentage for the season. It is outrageously low. And I know he's like the second best grade in terms of top pitcher percentage. I literally have no interest, but let's just jump right into it from here. Is Colorado a team that you want to be stacking up today?
Yeah, they're not as high on as I would have expected, particularly on the DK side. I'm kind of surprised by these numbers going up against Zach Greinke, actually. So yeah, I typically I look to get away from Coors Field in a lot of cases because it tends to be overowned. I'll keep an eye on the ownership, and it's a lot higher on FanDuel. But if it stays the same, I think there's a lot of good reason to go to those bats. A lot of good bats in that lineup going up against the guy who hasn't been a good pitcher for years now. 7.5% strikeout rate for Greinke, 5.2% swinging strike rate. These guys are just going to put the ball in play. If you're doing that against CJ Cron in Coors Field, sorry, that ain't going to work out. So yeah, we can get to some Rockies here.
And we can get my arch nemesis, Brendan Rodgers, out of that lineup. That would be great. His .076 ISO, 177 average. Oh, but he gets on base. No, he does not. He doesn't do jack squat. I can't stand this guy. So get rid of him out of my life. That would be awesome. I'm looking at
came out hurt, right? He's not in the projected.
Oh, well, I'm saying he got dinged up Tuesday, Wednesday, but it said that there was a chance because the MRI came back negative on his hand. There's a chance he could be in this lineup. Maybe not though. Maybe not. But Garrett Hampson is probably going to be the guy who ends up in there. We shall see. I don't really know, but I would rather play Hampson at this point in time just for $1,000 less than that meaningless guy higher up in the order. I just can't get over you, Brendan Rodgers. You're just killing me, the last year and a half.
Premium prospect coming up. I mean,
I'm over him. I'm very, very, very much over him. Ryan McMahon, I'm not. I love him more than anything. Hopefully he can start doing what I expect him to do long-term here. Be on the lookout too. Randall Grichik, not in the projected, but a possibility of playing here today as well. He was sick. So I think he probably ends up back in that lineup. Just things to pay attention to, but I'm glad we're not on board for Greinke. That's the quickest talk we're going to have here because on the other side of this one, Kyle Freeland. I generally like him as a real life pitcher, and he's a guy who keeps the ball on the ground, which is what you do in Coors. He's 5,800. He's positively leveraged. He's going up against a Kansas City team that is the most negatively leveraged on the entire slate in the top stacks tool. I have Kyle Freeland interest for DraftKings for an SP2. How about you?
He'll probably serve more to reinforce my lack of desire to get to the Royals than he will for me to go to him, particularly not on FanDuel. 7,400 single pitcher. I don't think we need him. 5,800. He's in that Jordan Lyles, whoever the other guy was, mix. If you want to take some darts on a super low owned pitcher who is likely to pitch a clean game, not a big game, but a clean game, then you can do it for your SP2 for in limited distribution. He's 0.5% owned. So there's no real reason to run away from that. If you're willing to take those $5,800 shots, he's just as good as any of them. Like you said, not a big time strikeout guy, but likely to keep the ball on the ground in the yard. So tepid DraftKings interest, no interest on FanDuel.
All right. Kansas City, they're super popular, both sites. Sal Perez, I get it. Should he be 25% on a 13 game slate? That probably is up for debate there at 5,300. I get it. He's got tons of power. If you're able to fit him into lineups, sure, sounds great, but I probably won't be doing it here. What sticks out to you from Kansas City? Is there any kind of a way that you're looking at stacking them up today?
I don't love it. I mean,
I'm just going to write him off, I think. I'm taking him out of the pool today.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll go that far because I do let things trickle into, small degrees, but they'll get way edged out in my sorting process anyway, which weights ownership fairly heavily. And these guys are just not going to make it because of those ownership marks. 30% on sell on FanDuel, 25% on DK. A lot of these guys in the mid-teens. It's not a very good team. What I will say is a non-strikeout pitcher against a team that's very good at avoiding the strikeouts in general could play to a lot of contact. And that's what this team is geared around is, hit tool and speed. So this park does play really well to what Kansas City does well with the giant ballpark. Few base hits go for, the drop in that wouldn't otherwise have because guys are playing deep. Now you got guys on base. Now somebody hits a double that wouldn't necessarily been a double. The speed comes through. Maybe they compile some runs, but they've been lousy this year. I don't need to go to over-owned Royals.
Well, let's go to mini cores then. That is Arizona here. 4.1 implied runs for the Cubs and the Diamondbacks 4.4, 8.5, one of the higher totals we have on the board today. And why? Drew Smiley versus Zach Davies will do that for you. That's for sure. Drew Smiley on the bump. 516 expected slugging. He's limited hard contact to 31.6%, but the Ks aren't there. It's an Arizona lineup that I think they're just kind of giving these young guys some run, and there might be some decent enough hit tool stuff, guys, that I'm seeing in this lineup for today. I don't want to get nuts with like an Alec Thomas or a Christian Walker or anybody else in that regard, but decent enough pop up against a lefty here in Smiley. No Drew Smiley interest for you?
No interest in either one of these pitchers. We can skip over the pitchers completely.
Well, then let's just talk offense quick here because that's really what we're here for. 4.1 implied run total here for the Cubbies, but you get some pop, you get some guys that I think are everybody serviceable against Zach Davies. Like that's really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, they're drawing some popularity, but I think it's reasonable enough. Like under 10% on Ian Happ, I really like at 3,700 on DK, under 10% at 3,100 on FanDuel. Very playable there. Alfonso Rivas, if he's hitting in the middle of that lineup, is going completely under owned for cheap. Patrick Wisdom low owned down toward the bottom. It's not the greatest lineup in the world, and the Ortega Suzuki portion of it at the very top is drawing a little bit of popularity, but it's fine to go there against a nothing pitcher. And I think pretty similarly of the other side of this one, they're all owned around, fair ownership numbers in the sub 10% range for less than 5K on DK. You can take them as a value stack where you need them. They're not my favorite lineup to go to in the world. I prefer to do that with, like sneaky good teams that happen to be cheap or happen to be under owned for whatever reason. But I think you can get away with some Ketel Marte, Christian Walker type of lineups. So yeah, with tepid interest to get there again, targeting bad pitching with affordable teams, I think is worth doing here.
All right. And then on the Arizona side, I talked about a couple of them. I mean, maybe Alec Thomas ends up being a thing. He had his first career homer. So he had a nice Mother's Day story. So that's the nice thing I can say about Alec Thomas. I don't know what to expect from him.
Him because you're a nice Midwestern guy and he's a nice guy, apparently.
He seems like a nice human
nice
being.
To his mom on Mother's Day. So
looks like he tries hard at the old baseball. Seems like something I want out of my major league players. So Alec Thomas, fast, hits the ball far. Cool. Cooper Hummel, you can throw him into the mix. David Peralta hitting above expectation, at least my expectations for him. And Ketel Marte should have some positive regression. Everything looks decent for me for Arizona. There's slight negative leverage, but I'm sure they'll fit into quite a few lineups for me. How about for you?
I think just on cost basis, they're worth getting to. Cost and the ownership is reasonable. Like I was saying, under 10%, everybody under 5K on the DK slate, everybody cheap on FanDuel. They should probably be a little bit more highly owned against this pitcher, to be quite honest, just given those value marks. So that's their main attribute. But like I was saying, I do believe in certainly a Jordan Luplow and his power against a bad lefty. You can buy some shares of that. Ketel Marte, Christian Walker, and his pop into some of those back end guys that. Less intriguing there. It's really around the Luplow, Marte, Christian Walker, maybe David Peralta part of it.
All right. Well, 2 more games to go. Smash the like button for Terry. Again, we are working overtime on this one. That is for sure. And he's working like an hour and a half overtime because he wasn't supposed to be on the show. And that's how the world works because
it's
you know
fun
what?
Finding out about the slate as we go to each game. Like I have no
You're
idea.
Like, oh, this is fascinating. Well, I just found this out. I think Chase Silseth is going to be the starter here for the Los Angeles Angels. He was not anywhere to be found. I had never even heard of him, but he got called up. Just found that out. I was scouring Twitter, trying to figure out who the starter is going to be. Found his Baseball Savant page and his FanGraphs page. So here's what I know about him. 2022, he plays for the Rocket City Trash Pandas of the AA. That is the greatest name I've ever heard. Now in 2021, he had a 13.5 ERA and just 2 starts at that level. Got called up from the ACL Angels, where he had only done a couple innings of work there. Hadn't really done much. But then this season so far, a 1.73 ERA with a 0.85 whip with 37 strikeouts. First of all, that came out of the middle of nowhere for him. And second of all, if that K stuff is actually as prominent as what it is, let me find out if he's on both of these sites. Silseth is 5,500 on the DraftKings site. I don't think he's going to be stretched out enough to go completely nuts with him, but he's got 26 innings pitched at this level in 5 games. So that seems like he's going over 5 innings per game in that kind of a scenario, because once again, that's how math works. I might have some interest in 5,500 going up against Oakland. I have interest in just about anybody going up against Oakland. Is Chase Silseth somebody you might consider rostering?
It's weird to say because I didn't know who the hell he was approximately 90 seconds ago, but probably. Just given the fact that he's going up against a really lousy Oakland offense here. It looks like he's pulling like 17% ownership now in the latest update on DK.
Oh boy,
at 5,500. So that's kind of interesting.
That came out of nowhere. He just got plugged into our tools. That is nuts to look at.
Yeah. So he's drawing a hell of a lot more attention than, say, our guy Jordan Lyles, who we keep coming back around to at that 57 mark. But yeah, I think if you're interested, if you're willing to go to that, you're certainly willing to go to Chase Silseth here, given the performance so far in the minors this year. Yeah, that's intriguing. It's at Double-A. He's a 21-year-old pitcher. He's not
21.
He's a young pitcher. Like he's most likely going to get lit here. And I'm also a little bit concerned now that I'm looking at the traditional scouting marks. 27th, the team prospect on a team that's not overloaded with pitching prospects. 40 grade commands, 55 potential on his changeup. 40 grades across the board. Not looking like great that like the scouts really think much of him, but the performance has been there at Double-A for a 21-year-old. Maybe you get some shots. It's not a good lineup that he's going up against. That's the best thing he's got going for him.
Yeah. And I mean, I would just say he's 21. Maybe they found something. They were able to fix him all up. And these performances we've seen in 5 games in Double-A can kind of maintain. Look at that.
Well, I do like to see that, right? That's something I look at. Because he's at the appropriate level for his age. You could argue that he's pitching over his head for his age if he's doing that well in Double-A. Where if you see some of these guys who come up at like 26 and we're looking at Double-A numbers for them, well, that guy's pitching. He's too old, too experienced to be pitching at that level. So you're getting kind of a different look, a different equation with Silseth here. So I think he's at least interesting.
He looks 40 in that picture on the screen. He looks 40.
I don't have it in front of me.
Whatever. Dalton Jeffries on the other side.
He does look old.
Doesn't he look old?
Yeah.
Like that's a 21-year-old.
Good. That's some hard Arizona living, I guess.
Yeah, there we go. What is it? Bear down. That's what they say. Bear down. Stupid saying. Actually, I think it's actually got some nice meaning to it, but I just don't like Arizona. Oakland Athletics, here we go. On the other side of it, Dalton Jeffries, he's starting there. 15% K percentage, yada, yada, yada. Not a pitcher I want to get to against the Angels. How about you?
No real need to go to Dalton Jeffries here, even for price and popularity. I don't really see a lot. 15% strikeout rate, not against this team.
All right. And this team I have interest in because they're generally in a bad ballpark against a bad pitcher, going to probably be under-owned for what they should be. Looking at the top stacks tool, that's kind of confirmed. They're positive leverage. They're going to be expensive, going to be hard to play the likes of Ohtani, Trout, Taylor Ward. My God. Did you know Taylor Ward leading all of Major League Baseball in WRC plus? Better than number 2, Mike Trout. That's insanity. Fun facts. But Taylor Ward back in that lineup, absurd stuff going on there. Might be the Halos year. Might be. I don't know. It's the Yankees year every single year until it's not. That's the way I look at it. But what do you see here from the Angels side?
See that in the projected lineup, if we leave out Andrew Velasquez and his 48 WRC plus at the bottom of this lineup, the average WRC plus, so the average creating runs above average, is 157.
Yeah.
So on the average, these hitters are 57% better than average creating runs. Now there are some small sample guys in there. There's Chad Wallach and Luis Rengifo in there who have made very few plate appearances this season. So that skews it a little bit, but everybody above them, the Marshes, the Trouts, the Otanis, the Walshes of the world, the Rendones of the world, have all made more than 100 plate appearances. These guys are good. This lineup completely changed my opinion about this team going into this year. I thought they were top heavy. Trout, Ohtani, maybe Rendon would give you something in Walsh. And it turns out that they're pretty damn good around the edges with Ward and Marsh in there too. So yeah, at least 1 through 6, I can roster this team. Chad Wallach in the projected instead of Stassi. I like Stassi as a catcher, as a sneaky hit batter in that lineup, but you're not going to get him tonight. So it's a 1 through 6, but I think you can get overloaded to it. Anytime Trout and Ohtani are going with under 5% ownership, just try and figure out ways to pay for it. You are not going to be able to put together a lineup with Trout, Ohtani, and Buxton in it, though. Not from DK, it's $6,000 each.
No. But the Oakland side, going up against Silseth, talking about one of the most popular value pitchers on the slate now. You said he could get lit up. Does that mean that you have some interest in getting some Oakland bats in your life?
It probably does make sense to consider that an interesting spot now, just because we are talking about some capable major league hitters. Ramon Laureano back in that lineup. Seth Brown, Sean Murphy both have power. Jed Lowry's a decent hit tool guy. Sheldon Neuse hitting above his head, but performing decently this year with very, very limited interest and low expectations, just for the fact that he's going up against a 40 grade minor league 21-year-old pitcher. Maybe you can get away with it. I don't love it. They're cheap. It's easy to put them into lineups. It's just not a high confidence play. Sean Murphy, $5,000 on DK. Woo, $3,000 on FanDuel.
Woof. Yeah, we'll have to look into that one more. That's going to be an ownership thing. If people are playing Silseth in absolute bulk, I think I have to have some Oakland shares. That's for sure.
You never know. Attack that SP2 ownership. Yeah, attack the SP2 ownership on DK. That said, that might be something that we see the Athletics get lifted up in the ownership numbers too, and end up negatively leveraged. And then, do we really want to get overloaded to a negatively leveraged A's team, regardless of who they're going against? So,
nope.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out.
Not in that ballpark with that lineup. That's for sure. Let's round it all out here, my friend. Last game of the night. We made it. Philadelphia Phillies 3.2
at Los Angeles. Talking to yourself this entire time. Granted, you would have been done 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, I would be on the floor. I would just be. It's like the meme of the guy just collapsing with his briefcase. Philadelphia Phillies, Kyle Gibson going up against Clayton Kershaw. 4.8 implied runs though for the Dodgers going up against Kyle Gibson. It's crazy to see an 8 total for any game involving Clayton Kershaw, but that's just kind of the way that people view the Dodgers offense, even against Kyle Gibson, who I think is a pretty good real life pitcher, 30.4%. I wish he was still a Twin. That would be nice. I miss you. Come back, but that's not going to happen. Not a strikeout guy, 19.5% for his career. 21.8% would be the highest mark of his career for a season if the year ended right now. Middle of the road in walks. Nothing really sticks out. I'm not going to play Kyle Gibson against the Dodgers, but are you?
Probably not. If it was a different team he was going up against, I would probably be interested at 7,500 on FanDuel, just giving a little bit of respect to the Dodgers there by saying no. If 1 or 2 shares got into my sort, it would be fine. I'd be okay with it. I don't expect a lot from him here, though. Like you said, limited pitcher in terms of the strikeouts, better real life pitcher than he is a DFS pitcher. So probably not. Maybe surprise with 1 or 2. And
on the other side, Clayton Kershaw, he's really good at throwing baseballs and is kind of in the middle of a career renaissance, I would say, this season. Just staying healthy. I think that's more of what it is. He's always going to be good. He's bright red across the board on Savant, 29.4% K percentage, 2.8% walk rate. I mean, we're talking about a guy with a 2.45 expected ERA. For me, it just is a question of, can these strikeouts continue to maintain? Can it continue to be around there? He doesn't compete with a Scherzer in terms of strikeout rate, but against Philly, a lot of lefties. That's kind of the main issue you have. If you can get by Bohm, you can get by Castellanos, and Harper I'll put into the mix as well. You have an opportunity to rack up some Ks. You have an opportunity to have a really solid outing. He's going to be a little bit overowned, it looks like, in our tools, but Clayton Kershaw will be in the portfolio for me. How much will he be in your portfolio, Terry?
Probably be decently over the field. Only pulling a 10% ownership projection on FanDuel at 10.2 on both sites, actually 20% on DK. I'll probably be between those two numbers on my FanDuel ownership. 15-ish maybe feels right, 18 somewhere around there. I rarely get well beyond 25 or so percent on anybody on a slate of this size. But I do really like Kershaw. I like the fact that he's going up against a Phillies lineup that going into yesterday had a 28.5% strikeout rate against lefties, the 29th ranked team in baseball, and one of the worst marks against either hand. That said, they do have very good power. 3.05% home run rate is 13th. 170 ISO in the split going into yesterday, was 7th. They just put a bunch of runs on, was it Tyler Anderson, a lefty yesterday? Obviously, Kershaw, a much better lefty. I think on any given slate, he could certainly push Max for the most strikeouts. It's definitely, he's got the talent, obviously. 29% strikeouts this year, 2.41 xFIP, a 0.73 whip, just pitching great. He's back to being Clay Kershaw until the back strains issue crop up later in the summer. So
yeah,
take advantage of him while you can.
Take that away. Stop.
Well, I mean,
stop the
I don't want
juju.
to put it on him, but I'm being realistic. Like it's a recurring issue now, and it's what did he pitch, like 121 2/3 last year, and I think that was his most in the last couple of years. So it's just unfortunately a recurring reality. So what I was going to try and say is take advantage of getting to him when you can get to him, when he's on the board for us at a very fair price for Clay Kershaw and decent ownership. So I think it's a good spot. I will definitely have some Phillies coming back the other way though.
There's a joke to be made about him putting the team on his back, but we're going to just avoid it and move on. Phillies, no thank you.
No Phillies bats?
No Phillies bats.
Interesting.
I like the Phillies. They just have a ton of power. 26 games or 26 teams in play. I find it hard to believe that I want to target Kershaw.
I don't want to target him, but I do want to have some shares of this team. I do believe in the right-handed hitting on this team. Guys like Nick Castellanos, Real Muto, Rhys Hoskins, certainly some Bryce Harper, even lefty, Alec Bohm, who you mentioned up at the top. Schwarber struggles a little bit in the lefty, but I mean, his power is there against anybody. So he'll be hitting toward the back end of the lineup probably again tonight. All these guys are under 1% owned on the DK slate, under 1% owned on FanDuel. Everybody on the team under 4,000 on the FanDuel slate, including Bryce Harper at 3,900. I can get interested in that despite the pitcher on the other mound. So it'll be limited. I won't go nuts with it, but I will have some.
I totally get it. And again, positive leverage. There's no way that the Phillies aren't going to be positively leveraged against Kershaw. So if you do that over a long period of time, you're going to get paid off eventually. I just find it hard to believe that I want to be doing that as opposed to playing Kershaw on FanDuel. So I'm with you in that regard. I think I'll be over the field on Kershaw. Hard for me to jam a ton of Phillies bats at their prices, but if they got the Atlanta discount, that would have been nice. But we jump down to the Dodgers bats. And for having a 4.8 implied run total, it doesn't seem like they're all that popular. They're not grading out phenomenally well against Gibson. I get it. Gibson's a serviceable pitcher, but just a 3.7% top stack percentage on this slate, I might be over on the Dodgers. I think that they might be a team, along with Houston, with their positive leverage. Those are two teams I just stack up a lot more than average. We'll figure out what to do with Colorado, but I'm going to have interest in the Dodgers. How about you to round out the show?
I don't think it would be crazy to say right now that you could maybe call a shot with the Dodgers-Rockies stack. They're both too under-owned. I don't get this ownership on the Dodgers. I didn't get the ownership on the Rockies where it was. Everybody on the team on both sites in the single digits. What are we doing, guys? Most of the lineup, even on DK, is fairly affordable. A lot of $4,000 and below hitters, from 4 down. A lot of cheap hitters in the FanDuel slate, guys priced appropriately. Yeah, I can load up on some Dodgers shares here. I do think Kyle Gibson, like we said, is a good real life pitcher. He's limited hard hits to 30.4% so far this year, 7.6% barrel rate. Last year, the hard hits were 39.1, 4.9% barrel rate. He's going to give up some contact, though. He's not going to be striking a lot of these guys out. They're difficult to strike out anyway. When these guys are under owned, they're absolutely a team I can get to on any given slate. A lot of multi-position eligibility on FanDuel as well. Definitely interested in the Dodgers.
We did it, my friend. Thank you for jumping in late.
Let's go around again.
Let's not. Let's get out of here. Oh my God. You'll be back later. You'll have plenty of time to be able to chat with your buddy Gundacker, my buddy Gundacker. That is at 4:15 p.m. Eastern time, going all the way up until 5:25 p.m. Eastern time, and then switching it over to the 5:30 p.m. Eastern time NBA Deeper Dive. That is going to be Ryan Putnayak, my boy Rinpack, and Adam breaking everything down for that 2-gamer. Might be our last 2-game NBA slate of the season. Sad face. 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be on hanging out with my buddy Greg. Looking forward to that one. But Terry, thank you again. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Oh, this was fun. My article's going to be up on the site in a couple hours after I can write it, and then I'll be right back in your lives hosting the Live Before Lock and doing this all again, actually with a hard time cap this time. So an hour 10, I think. So
you got to get out of there. Yep, yeah,
don't want to get yelled at.
Yeah, don't. But again, we get to talk sports. It's not the worst thing. We can make it all work. Terry McBride, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Mike Awesemo, you're awesome too. Way to go. Good times. Sorry to your Philadelphia team that you secretly hate. Yep, all good. Terry McBride, he's
Philadelphia.
awesome. I'm Eric. I'm okay. We'll see you guys later. Good luck tonight.